Welcome back to another episode of the Bass Capital Radio podcast. I'm your host, Lara Wallace, and today I'm here with local legend, Mr. Tom Deputy. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm excited about this.
That you and me both. So Tom is a photographer, has been a staple in our community for since I can remember. If you were going to get photos done, Tom Deputy was the person to go to, and I was honored, even in your retirement, for you to do my headshot for Riverside when I was with them. I've always dreamed of this moment where we sit down and we talk about your history in Putnam County. And let's do the first question. It's a requirement to answer on the show. How long have you been in Putnam County? I know family wise, it's well beyond you, correct?
Yeah, we moved from Indianapolis. The five, me and four of my siblings, came to live with my grandparents in Crescent City. They had sold their newspaper outside Indianapolis and moved to Crescent City and bought the Courier and the Journal in '59 and made the Courier Journal. Then my dad became sick, so like over the weekend, we were all of a sudden in Florida, living in Crescent City. So we lived there for 3 years. And then dad became a teacher at St. John's River College and the printing department. And then in the ninth grade, I moved here to be part of the class in 1970.
The not just a class, the class of 1970. If you've watched any of the other episodes, this class has come up quite a bit. So you guys
We
are
were a
pretty,
busy group
yeah, and still to this day are a busy group. I
and
mean,
very close.
yes, yeah, you guys get together frequently, correct?
Yes, we do. And constantly hear from on my Facebook page with the birds. Most of my likes are ex classmates from all over the country.
That's incredible. I do feel like there's a from then to now, the camaraderie is not quite the same. And I know other classes get together. I graduated in 2002 and I still talk to a number of my former classmates, but you guys have something that is just
We were bonded and still are. My best friends are from my class.
And I love that so many of you stayed in Putnam, maybe left to get your education, but came back and are realtors and leaders in the community. So something special happened in 1970. I don't know what that was, but I hope we can.
Our parents used to say, "You guys don't realize it, but this is a special group of people." They were wise to it and kept telling us. And I remember I'm going, "What can make us special?" But as time went by, it became very obvious that they were all leaders and progressive intellectuals.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think even the deputy clan, I've had the opportunity to look at now capturing history from two perspectives. Obviously, the print, which is in your genes, and now from the the typography, the words on the paper, to you putting visuals to it. And I just love we were coming up here and we're in a historic building built after the big fires and was made of brick to withstand that. And you talking about fighting a fire from the rooftop of this building, so you've seen a
Right.
lot of things here.
Yeah. The HRS building was, I broke into this building and ran lines from the third floor windows into the top of the HRS building. And so, yeah, it was. I haven't been in here since in the early '80s. It's not the same, but
Still a
yes,
little
but
flashback.
oh yes, it is. That was an exciting night.
I can imagine you shared so you not only were taking photographs, but you also volunteered with the fire department,
I
correct?
started as a volunteer, and then I went full time in 1980. But
Thank you, by the way, for your
oh well,
service.
thank you. 37 years was went by fast, and it was very exciting. Very
uh,
exciting life.
I bet now you share with me as you were fighting this fire that you held that line for 8 hours. Is that what you?
At least, yeah. The sun came up, and then Mr. Miller ran the high rise, and we hadn't had a break all night. And he came over, and we're just laying in the street, and he goes, "I have a ham cooked and hot coffee." And by then we were soaking wet and in the cold. I never forgot how good that coffee and that ham was.
I bet.
Wow.
And you preserved, we are sitting in this building because of the work that you've done, just Yeah,
Well, thank
absolutely
you.
incredible. Oh, thank you. Really. Um, there are so many things that you have photographs of, and I very much look forward to that. But in your mind, there are things that we'll never be able to see in a picture if you have not been able to capture it. But I would love to know what it was like for you growing up in Putnam County. Let's start with your childhood. You went to school here.
Ninth grade
Obviously, yes,
on.
sir.
Yes,
Nice
ninth
ninth
grade
grade
on.
on.
Yep.
And so tell me what some of your fondest memories were as the youth in the community.
Well, I started taking I got injured in football and then immediately re-broke my collarbone, and I'd already been taking pictures, and I had two back-to-back fractures, which were debilitating and slowed me down, but so my dad said, "Let's do pictures." So I started taking pictures in the ninth grade a little bit, but by time in the 10th grade, I was the main photographer for the yearbook, and the Plaquemine Daily News started seeing them because I was putting them in also in the high school newspaper, The Smoke Signal.
The smoke signal?
The Smoke Signal, yeah,
I dig
yeah.
that.
The
I like
Palaca
that.
South was called The Smoke Signal, except for our April Fool's edition was called The Bullsheet.
I
And
dig
I
that.
came up with that in a dream somehow, but anyway,
The irony though of it being called the
yes.
smoke signal and you being a firefighter, I think is
Oh,
kind
I
of
never even thought about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Huh.
Some of those come back. Like I got married. I was the first person to get married in the Bronson house, and they had just finished it. Well, the amplifier set off the fire alarm. So my movie there was a gentleman taking a movie
Yeah.
with 9 millimeter or 8 millimeter film, and the fire department came. So they got in the pictures with us
Wow.
while they were inspecting the house, and I had my portrait made with the fire department, never dreaming that I'd one day work with them.
It has been aligned for you since at
Yeah,
least ninth
it's just
grade.
I didn't see the arrows at the time or the pointers saying, "There you are, there you are." So, yeah.
Yeah, so you broke your collarbone twice. I can't imagine how terrible that was, but in some way, we're as a community thankful because that led you into photography. So you were naturally gifted, clearly, for somebody to recognize you within the first year.
Right, and, the newspaper started seeing my images and started asking for them and paying me $3 a piece to be published in the
That was
newspaper.
money
So
back
then
then.
for the 3 years before I graduated, I was very busy with the newspaper, and I remember sometimes having as many 6 published a day. Yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
it got me going. But when you say a natural, I always been charged with that. Even in photography school, people would come up and say, "Tom, we hate you." And I go, "Why? What did I do? What did I do?" And they go, "You're the most natural photographer we've ever seen."
Did you have inspiration as a child? Like, did you ever envision yourself doing
No,
photography?
my dad was a photographer. He got his graduate work was all in journalism and political science from IU. And his darkroom, he photographed for the coroner, and his darkroom was terrifying to me
A
because
dark,
it
dark
was,
room.
yeah, at that time and age, there's no way I could even envision what his pictures were of.
Mm,
But
mm.
no, then I started a boy from the college. We printed the Viking Horn newspaper, and the editor was from Jacksonville, Steve Barber, and he started realizing I like to take pictures. So he actually set me up with a camera and an enlarger and taught me how to develop pictures. And the day he did that, the sun came up before I knew it. I developed pictures all night long. I couldn't quit doing it.
Oh, I bet because now, we have cameras and it's instant gratification.
Right.
And I feel like the art of printed photo I don't want to say it's dying out, but people don't like my children don't uh to look at printed photos, they are not it's very foreign to them where they're scrolling through their phone.
Right. Right.
But to take it, I mean, I remember getting the little disposable cameras in high school, and you did not know what you were getting. It was that moment, and hopefully you captured it. And that's a lot of pressure, like especially if you're doing like photos of weddings or
And that's what I used to be known as. Even
yeah,
as a kid, I was the first person when I came in high school. I actually was photographing weddings. I bought my first car for $50 with the pictures I took of a high school senior. He was a year older than me, got married in Ravine Gardens, and I charged him $50, and I gave that to Henry Lightfoot's mother-in-law for a '53 Chevrolet.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I had a car.
Yeah, you have camera will travel,
That's
right?
it, and then that was go from then on. But I
Right.
was the first photographer in Palaca doing color photographic weddings. All the other guys were still shooting black and white. And my reputation, it was funny, they go, "We hear your pictures come out each time." In those days, that was the first question people asked, do all your wedding pictures come out? Because so many people's the film was destroyed, lost in the mail, or they had a camera malfunction. And so even when I went into business in 76, people would come in and say, "We hear your wedding pictures come out." And that was the thing that it's funny to think back.
Yeah, I mean, really, as we talk about, history is a huge thing on our channel. Um, that is a thought that most of us don't ever, you know.
Consider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in high school knowing, oh, this picture was blurry of me and my friends, but back then there was no let's look at it real quick and see if that happened. And especially in wedding, it's not you may kiss the bride. Wait, kiss the bride again. It's
Right.
you got one and done, and that there's no way of going back to capture that. It is either it came out or it didn't. So that's a really unique perspective.
Yeah, this digital takes that pressure off.
Right.
But yeah, because it wasn't all in our hands. Sometimes film would get ripped in the processor. The color film had to be processed. I developed all my black and white, but we even had terrified that we would split our rolls of film up into two different shipments because shipments would come disappearing.
Ah,
And there was a
kind of a
reputation of that happening. Luckily, I never lost a wedding. And I still have nightmares, still thinking that something's going wrong at a wedding. I don't know why I dream about weddings, but I do it. Something's gone wrong. Something's gone wrong, and
oh
I
my
finally wake
goodness.
up and I'm freed.
That I can imagine that
It was just
pressure.
that's what I'm trying to establish
Yes,
is the fact
yeah.
that this pressure never went away. I still have it and through wedding. I'm done wedding.
Flashbacks,
Yeah.
yeah. Not the fires, the
No, the
weddings.
fire. Yeah.
Wow. So you get into taking photographs. Obviously, you're a natural at it. I'd love to know what your favorite thing to photograph is, because you photographed a
I
lot of
do. I
stuff.
photograph about everything, and I don't know if I have a favorite. I love just creating. And even Josh Severance is going to fly me Friday, and I hope to
Oh,
maybe get some sunsets and some different things from the air. I have a lot
oh,
of aerial views of Palaca that I did in the old days. I actually photographed Seminole from the day they started clearing the land until the finish. I did a lot of projects for Hudson Paper and then in the GP, photographing aerial views as they were building projects.
wow.
So yeah, so I used
Yeah,
to know
you
the
got
sky well.
history.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I was with Life Flight as a medic for a while on the helicopter, so I was natural up there buzzing around at 500 feet, you know?
That's amazing. I have so many questions, but I have
I'm
to
sorry,
go back.
I
No,
got out
no,
of line.
no. There's no lines here. This is
Okay,
however we want to talk. Is
there you
we're just
go.
having a good time. Let's look back at you started with the newspaper. They obviously love your work, so you continue working with them. Tell me where life takes you from doing the photographs for the newspaper. Did you just decide that I'm sticking with photography and that's
Well,
it, or
actually, I thought I was gonna go to printing school
okay?
in Rochester, where my uncle was an executive at Kodak.
Hmm.
But then one day, my dad surprised me, came home and said, "Monday, you'll report to Daytona Beach College. You are now enrolled in photography school." And I said, "You did that?" He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Wow, I didn't know it was there." He said, "Yeah." He kept it secret. And so I reported, and I was a week late, but turned out I was the exception because I guess the president of the college was my grandfather's roommate at the University of Illinois.
Ah, pays to
So
know
I
people.
know somebody. So I got in and I
Thank goodness that's what
it was
you
great.
wanted to do, right?
Right. 8
You
hours we were in school. I got in a program that was designed for Vietnam vets. It was 8 hours a day for 2.5 years.
wow.
And I didn't do any academics. I just did photography.
Eight
And our
hours a day
class
for
became
2.
very pretty much famous. A lot of the guys are like international famous. Jackie Green, USA Today, most of his career until he retired. Joe Craig is the black and white label portraits on the cruise ships.
Okay.
Yes, and he's done very well, and we work on a lot of projects together, creating black and white type portrait styles. So, and that's fun,
Yeah.
creative. I love doing that. So to say I have one thing I love doing, because when I'm out photographing wildlife, it's like God sends it to me. I'll just sit down and birds come and perform for me. So they
That's
actually, this
Tom
group of,
Deputy.
I know it. Yeah, we know him. They'll sit and pose for me or do stuff. And they've named me the bird whisperer. And some of these photographers are in Europe. And Joe Craig was telling me they call you the bird whisperer. And I said, it's not fair. I don't even know the names of the birds.
Right.
I'm just
That one
photographing them.
looks pretty. I like that
Yeah, look at
one.
that pretty red one with the crown, no.
That's amazing though.
Yeah,
And the fact that I mean, I really think about how much talent Putnam County has in general, and our art scene is way bigger than I think people
it's
recognize.
amazing.
Oh my goodness. But the fact that you touched a camera and that was it, like that it was meant to be. It was part of you.
It was natural, it
Yeah.
was natural, and Audie Motes actually saw it, and I had just a little clunker of a camera, and Audie Motes actually gave me a camera that I could focus and do good with.
Oh, so you were just
So,
old
he
school
saw that,
camera.
and he gave me a camera, and I never forgot that. I was like, "Wow."
Wow. So somebody invested in you.
Right.
So you go to college, you do your 2.5 years, and then what happens?
Well, I tried to get on with a master photographer and do apprenticeship. And another friend of mine actually was 2 years ahead of me out of school. He ended up getting that position with Macintosh in Virginia Beach. So then my buddy that started me in photography when I was in high school, Steve Barber, went to work for Olin Mills School Division. So he talked me
Old
into, and he
Olin
made a lot of
Mills.
sense
Hmm.
about all the experience I'll get fast with that kind of demand of work. So I was given the Atlanta territory.
Yeah, everybody had
Right.
a
So
Olin
I went
Mills on
to
the wall.
Atlanta, and
Okay.
I was the photographer for the salesman. And then we got another photographer. They liked me so much they got another photographer from the same school. And in conversation, to believe it or not, I had the contract and photograph Robert Mills' senior portrait.
Oh my gosh, that's
I
amazing.
know it.
That's a small town, small world
I know it.
happening.
We're talking when I'm doing his black and white portrait for the church, and he's told me where he went to school, and I said, "What year?" And he goes, "Why?" I said, "I had the contract," and it turned out he was one of my pupils that I photographed.
So, just to give some context for those of you watching, we have a local financial advisor, former pastor. He grew up in Atlanta and has landed in Putnam County, and he graduated in Atlanta. And for you, who also lives in Putnam County, Palaca, and to be tied together so closely, it's not like it's a random, happenstance. You've known each other for a long time. To be in a conversation and to find out that you were the one from Putnam County to photograph someone who had not made it yet to Putnam County.
Right, right.
That's
Did he senior
wild.
portrait?
That's wild.
Yes.
Only only here. I mean, I'm sure
I
it's not
know.
only here, but
Yeah.
that's how it feels
It's
sometimes.
strange how many people I do meet in the photography world that I ran into somewhere else. But then when I got an opportunity to do an apprenticeship on the master photographer in Augusta, Georgia,
Hmm.
I immediately took that opportunity, and I did a year or so under him, and then I decided it was time. I was ready to do it on my own. So I came home and set up a studio at 309 and a half
309
St.
and a half.
John's Avenue.
Another irony here, we were just talking about before we started recording, the past and how important it is to capture that and recognize it. And I found online a book, and I'll link it here so you guys can enjoy it as much as I did. But it's a publication, a directory of Palaca. This is pre zip code. And I was kind of shocked as I'm scrolling through that it's 39 and a half was an address. And I just happened to show him that random address, and it happened to be your
It
studio.
was my
So
first
that's
studio upstairs
crazy.
over Steamboat Willie's. It's Steamboat Willie's now. It used to be French Bouderie.
French Bouderie?
French Bouderie right next to Belk's.
Oh, yes, I do.
Belk's was
Yeah,
storing up there, and they cleared half of it out and made me a camera room to
I
help
love
me
it.
out to get started in business because there was no place to rent in town. Downtown, nowhere in town was there an empty spot for me to set up a studio.
I am disappointed to think that we have such vacancy now when I mean you had to go upstairs and they had to clear a spot. I look forward to though. I really do believe that tides are changing and I look forward, hopefully, to seeing things fill up
Being
and
back to normal.
exactly, because again, we're here because there's so much history. There's not just history, but potential and resources, both natural and community wise. It's just a really special place to be.
Beautiful spot on the river, all kinds of great things that a lot of people, a lot of communities don't have.
Mm-mm, absolutely. I mean, and to be 45 minutes, roughly from
That's
everything
right.
that you
I always called it, people would say, where are you from? I said, I'm from the hub. I'm from the hub of the wheel.
exactly.
You're 50, 60 minutes from anywhere.
Yeah. I must have a lead foot because I said 45, but you're not wrong.
No, yeah.
50, 60 minutes.
I drive the long way.
So tell me what you do as an apprentice to a photographer. I'm trying to envision what that looks like.
Well, I always thought that I knew a lot because I was the dean's list. I thought I had it made, and in Atlanta they made such a fuss of my photography work, but I was trained versus the people they hired to put in there. And the first thing I realized that when I went there is I didn't know anything. He started showing me work, and then he taught me the art of a wedding photography, and it was very traditional in Augusta.
Hmm.
They had what I wasn't used to, which was the consultants that guided the wedding. And I learned exactly where the bride's to be, exactly how the dress is to be formed. I was taught all that in the weddings.
Never would have thought about that.
I did large negative, black and white on like the camera I told you I own.
Yeah.
He had the same exact camera, and I shot large negative businessmen portraits. I was photographing senior portraits just like I did in in Atlanta. Um, it was everything, aerial views. We did commercial work. Their biggest client was, and they were famous. The partner, Morgan, was had photographed since the beginning of the Masters.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, the Masters was one of their largest incomes, was supplying images of the Masters. But yeah, so wherever he went, I carried the camera bag, and then finally he released me, and then I went and did. In fact, he got where I could do the sessions and
So
went
you
on the
had to get
weddings myself.
humbled a little bit.
I got humbled, and then I was trained and critiqued on fine posing. Uh, he taught it was class, my buddies still make fun of me because they say nobody's a classical poser like me because of the hands on how they go on women and how they're supposed to turn in relations and the head and shoulder tip and all that. It's an art. Head and
Oh,
shoulder
I
portraits is a total art, and I don't see much of it being taught anymore. And what we were taught in the classical days, what is a proper head and shoulder portrait.
right.
And see, my wife keeps saying, you've got to go on media and start teaching what you know and is not being done anywhere.
She's not wrong.
I know I go to a wedding and I cannot believe their behavior. Most in the old days, the preachers and the priests would stop the service and reprimand somebody for taking pictures during the service or being a
Mm,
distraction in the front. There's a total etiquette to a wedding,
right.
and nobody's been. They're doing the apprenticeships has ceased, and they're just out on their own, and it's not how you do it.
It's inst interesting, couldn't get that
Mm.
word out, that you mentioned the whole etiquette thing. Randomly, I watched a short form video the other night, and it was a woman with a classroom of students, and she was sitting at a desk, and she had a dinner setting in front of her, and was teaching the students how to properly eat and the placement. And I remember growing up, elbows don't go on the table, and how you're supposed to hold your silverware. And to me, though I'm far from perfect, it's kind of that I was taught that, but my children surely don't know. I get on to my kids all the time. They like to sit up at the dinner table and lean back. And I tell them, get your feet off the, I don't know why you're doing that. But really they don't know. And I started talking to my oldest, and we were talking about etiquette, and she said I don't know why they taught me XYZ in school. And I mentioned the etiquette thing. There are just some things that we have lost over the years, and I get things change, times change, but I can understand what you're saying. There's a
Right.
lost art to, I guess, being put together. And some people think, oh well, that's old news, but there is a sense of You're just
And that really gets me too, because of the way I was raised with proper manners,
right, correct.
mouth shut when you eat, all those things. And you go in a restaurant now and watch, and
It's the wild, wild
it's
west.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah. We're hurting.
Well, there's some things that I'm okay with us leaving behind, that the times do change and things do change. But I do not disagree with the fact that it's much different as far as etiquette wise in the world. So I digress. You went
No,
out.
you're good. You're good. No, no, I
I
think we could address that some more, but I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think if anything, just to have a conversation about holding on to that piece of history, that proper way of doing things. I would love to see you start, whether it be a TikTok or a YouTube channel or just somewhere to capture those short form videos, because somewhere out there, I think that there's a classiness. You can look at photos and tell when they were taken based on the posture, and I feel like I just remember the old photos where the husband and the wives are standing, very, uh, postured and
Rigid.
yes. And if you look at the photos now where the kids are much more relaxed and,
No kidding.
whatever, you could tell a time difference. So I encourage you to do that.
Well,
Your
thank you.
Miss
Thank you.
Leela's right. The wife is right.
There you go.
Absolutely. Uh, you're done with your apprenticeship. You're released into the wild. Where does life take you?
Well, I came back to Jacksonville. I was going to stop there, get my act together, and then my plan was to go to New York City and be a fashion photographer, because everybody kept saying that I was the could be the next Avedon, and
Mhm.
that would inspire me, of course. But then I didn't do all that well in Jacksonville. And then I started doing weddings in Palaca. So then I kind of drifted this way. And then pretty soon I decided, well, it's time to find a spot
Mhm.
and get things going. And I was wanted to be commercial primarily, which is not portraits and things. And that's why I named it Photo One, uh, kind of a commercial name. But then portraits started happening, and I really loved people and photographing people.
Mhm.
And it was natural to me. And I even photographed Walt Pellicer asking. My first ad was playing on my name. I shot the sheriff. The song,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot the deputy. Walt agreed. I did his portrait, ran the ad. I shot the
I
sheriff.
love it. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
And one of my first clients also was Billy Crane, the
Uh-huh.
country singer from Barden that created the Barden Burger. He was like my second customer or first customer, and I actually had to photograph his wife dressed up in a monkey suit as the Barden Booger, but he created the song and made the Barden Burger.
We're gonna come back to that again. I don't. Sometimes the episodes based on when I film them is the
Right.
release, but I have a great interest in the Barn Booger, so we're gonna talk about that after
Okay.
this one. We'll stick with the photography for the moment, but I have a lot more questions with the Barn Booger. That being said, um, so you didn't mind changing the from commercial to portraits
No,
because
I started really enjoying it because, well, I still see some of those portraits. When I ran rescue, I'd go in people's homes, be working, look up, and there's my name on a portrait that would be 15, 20 years old. The portrait of Dr. Campbell in Meridian Gardens, it's time to replace it. But I did that portrait of him in the early, well, no, mid 70s when he was one of my first clients also, was photographing Dr. Campbell. And then I ended up photographing all the doctors, and it just
I
boom,
can
boom, boom, boom.
imagine the
The head
the
and shoulder portrait demand in those days for
right,
businessmen. Businessmen had to have a head and shoulder professional portrait.
right.
A candid was not considered proper.
Yeah,
Right.
I headshots were and is that the proper term, headshots? Head and shoulder
Well,
is
that's
the
that's what New York gave them, but it was we called them head and shoulder
head and
portraits.
shoulder
You're right, right.
portraits. I'm very familiar. I always felt like that was when I knew I had achieved success if I had to have one of those,
A professional portrait.
exactly, a professional portrait. So when yeah, I've worked in corporate before, and yeah, at the time, I was a call center, we didn't have those, but there was no need for them at the time. But we did, inner office photos, but nothing like that. But when I had to have my first, as you took it, head and shoulder photo, I was I've done things. I'm so proud of
Right. I have a
myself.
publicity
I,
portrait.
I know somebody wants to look at me. I think that imagining being in your shoes where you're seeing your work. I know when I see a little art piece that I've done in my friend's home, or at a local. Again, I'm a novice artist. You're not going to see my work everywhere. I know there are a lot of incredible artists in Putnam County. I would pay a great deal of money to get one of the prints from John Hodge for the Blue Crab, as
I
an
know.
example. Oh my goodness! But that being said, I can imagine there's a great sense of pride, and you really are a part of their family. You've captured a moment in time that they let you into that area, not just the head and shoulders, but the family photo or the
Yeah, in the
wedding.
weddings, because now I see on Facebook a lot of people in their 40s and 50s anniversaries of weddings,
Right,
and they'll put a picture up and I go, "Oh my gosh, I took that."
right.
Wow. And it's still look back, say 50 years ago, well, I did something that's still here and still appreciated.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we need to continue to work to honor. And I have told you this probably 3 times. But I think about it way more, and I've probably told 100 other people to pressure you into doing this. So you got to do your TikTok, your videos about doing the etiquette. But I would also love to see. I know, and I want to hear some stories of your photographs of Main Street, Palaco, downtown. I'd love to see a walkthrough of the photographs hanging up so you can virtually, like, you can walk through looking at old what it used to
What it
look
was.
like. Yeah, and then one of my missions is to do a now or then versus now, but to be able to, I don't whether we get a auditorium or whatever that is, but to set it up so we could walk down Main Street,
Oh, wouldn't that be
and
cool?
that would be really cool
Make a,
with
a
your
reality
photographs. Exactly.
studio.
And not a virtual one where it's a gallery, but the gallery is a walk of what was.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to that. Maybe we'll do it together. Maybe
Yeah, I can
I'll help
envision that.
capture that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That being said, you know, you got your studio. Did you only photograph for work, or did you do stuff in your spare time? I
Oh,
know we
I
talked
photographed
about
all the
that.
time. I sunrises, sunsets, art. See, my way my our school was laid out. We were exposed to everything. My first term was photojournalism,
Hmm.
and my instructor was a retired, very famous photographer from Louisville Times. Was it Louisville Journal? One of
Hmm.
those, anyway. And he's even in the book. Some of his stuffs are in the Time Life books and things.
Mm.
Then the second term was way different, and it was arty, arty side. Not we were exposed to a different Jerry Yulesman from the University of Florida type work. Ansel
For us
Adams,
novice, tell me what that looks like. Like,
Jerry Yulesman. He was multiple images. He was real famous. I'm not sure if he's still here or not, but he taught at the university and he was world famous.
mhm.
And we actually load up and go over there to his lectures. We were taught the zone system by that Ansel Adams and Edward Weston did. Once you learn that, there's with film, you absolutely are a master. Once you learn that system, there's nothing you can't photograph that isn't absolutely perfect. And we were taught how to print. Now, printing pictures is still a major art. Even in New York City at this time, there are still the master printers. Most
Mhm.
photographers can't equal what a master printer can create on photographic paper. But like you
Okay.
say, most people now look at digital images on electronic device. But see, I print. I have
Mhm.
printers and I have to hold the print and see the print. That
Oh, yeah.
is the tangible come to life product. It
Right.
actually doesn't just seem two-dimensional. That feels three-dimension.
Right.
So I think that most people need to realize they're cheated if they think everything on a screen is giving them the true feeling in the image.
No, there's a connectedness to
Yeah.
it.
People, birds, animals, anything a photograph comes to life in a well printed image. Then we did a term. Then we did a summer term of color,
Mhm.
and then which was six. What it was, we never quit school. It was always going. And then I did a term of portraiture,
Mhm.
and then I did a term of commercial work. And commercial work was like we photographed tabletops, silverware, all that kind of hard stuff that
Right.
really is scientific. And then we did a finished term in color because we had to process our own color, and it was very crude then, very
What does
crude
that look like?
processes.
Like, I know.
It's in, you put it in baskets that are wire, and you're in the dark dunking it, and you have a timer that glows in the dark, and you're in there sloshing chemicals and hoping that you got something. And but if you touch it wrong, your fingerprints in it. Uh,
Oh, man.
Anything can happen. It can be fogged. You can have all kinds of issues. Failure was high in that kind of processing then. Now it's, those machines are pretty smooth. In fact, I had my own color lab, and it was pretty modern and pretty. I would I could shoot a prom and then print all 1,200, 1,500 8x10s the next day.
Wow.
Process the film and then print them myself on my machine.
Now that's crazy. Really, the youth today, and I don't know that I really had the great appreciation. Again, I did grow up where I would send my camera in and cross my fingers, hope for the best, and I still have a ton of my photographs, but nothing to the extent of where I considered the fact that kind of like baking or creating a dinner, if the temperature's too high or add too much salt, or it's a process that the environments, the elements, the user can ruin that. Where if I take a photo on my phone, I can tool around with the colors and whatever and do, some yeah, editing and magic on that and then print it. And people, I mean, it's wild how far that's come. But I think there's something so pure about a filmed
Right. And you
production.
developing the print,
Yeah.
watching it come up.
That
The
is an art
magic
in
never
itself.
you most photographers still share that feeling of the first time you watch a print develop in the tray, and it is addicting.
Yeah.
And and I miss it. I still have darkroom equipment hidden, stored away, big nice stuff in case I start shooting film
If you
again.
decide to, please call me. I want to be.
You want to
Oh,
watch?
absolutely.
I don't blame you because you'll be hooked.
I want to see the whole process, and that's one of the things that I have a strong desire to do. And I'm going to be. I love sitting down and having these kind of conversations, but I think there's something magical about being into that. So, you and I've talked about some projects I want to work on later, and you guys stay tuned because you'll get to join us. Just like the evolution of photography, there'll be an evolution in our channel, being able to be out in the wild and do that. But I
Right.
can see that, because for me there was something about, as an artist, when you put a piece together and that last little, that's the last drop of paint, and then you get to touch it and you're like, that's it.
That's it.
I can see, just knowing, "Oh, that's it."
It's done.
Yeah. Oh, I get chills thinking about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, back to you being in Palaca. So you are the go-to guy for Head and Shoulder professional photographs. Obviously, you're doing weddings. Is it just you the whole time? Do you have an apprentice? Do you have someone?
It's just me now. I had a staff when I had my studio. I had as many as 4 employees at a time,
Mhm.
but now it's just, yeah, a motorcycle wreck in 2004 and almost finished me off. My kids, while I was healing, closed my studio and actually took some of the stuff to the dump to make sure I was slowed down. They said I was working too hard. Of course, I was doing as much as 96 hours a week at the fire station and then still shooting full time in between. And
I don't love the dump thing. However,
I know
you
it.
needed an intervention, it sounded
So
like.
it slowed me down. So then I photograph 2 or 3 times a week at the house, portraits in the
Mhm.
house or on location. I'm doing a series right now. I've decided to do some series. Now that I've got into the wildlife and I've been in 2 shows, I now have a one-man show I'm preparing for that's at my buddy's studio gallery in Missouri, and it's going to be on wildlife.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that.
And then I decided to shoot and do a series on the farmers, and I've been photographing local farmers
How
with
cool.
in their environment, and I'm printing those on a new printer I got, so I'm making those 2 by 3 feet big.
That's
those
gonna be
prints,
amazing.
and they're fun. They're so real and looking.
For those of you who don't know, amongst many things such as the river, the ravines, the history, we have a great amount of farmland and farmers still, and it really is incredible to see what all is cultivated in the earth of
I know it.
Putnam.
Yeah, and right over across the line, just across the line in Hastings, I
Yes.
just was trained that Hastings was the man that Flagler, which was his nephew, I believe, to go to Hastings and create food for everybody he had working over there building the railroad lines in St. Augustine. So that's why it's called Hastings. And all the farms and the potatoes and everything were initiated by a man named Hastings, related to Flagler that created the railroad and
Huh.
did the college.
Well, some of Hastings is in Putnam.
Yeah, it blends.
And
Yeah.
yes, so ironically enough, we talk about these continual happenstances. I'll be going over to Hastings to do some filming of their market, as we have a lot of blending of the county
Yes.
line there. So um,
Oh, and I have
that's a
some great portraits of the county line people.
I'm
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Bring it
Okay.
on
Yeah,
over.
they were my first ones volunteered, and I have a great portrait of them. Yeah, I'll share with
That's
you.
amazing. So you've had, as you're a one man photographer, one man show, if you will. When you were younger, you were sharing some stories about being a child photographing other things that happen in the community with other photographers. So you've given that experience obviously to some junior photographers. Tell me about when you were a kid, what all you were photographing.
Well, when I could, or John Huber was the Plaquemine Daily News photographer, he'd come and he called me Tommy because everybody
Hmm.
that my dad that knew my dad, because my dad called me Tommy, so he would say, "Tommy, come on, let's go get your camera." And I remember he got me one night. He ran in and got me, and we went and photographed the Howell Theater burning. And we just walked in. We were walking by the firemen. We went on all three floors at the decks and photographed across the top of them while they were spilling water. He half got me killed. We went to a rodeo and we were with the clown. And there were several times that the bull almost got me, and I was just doing what John showed me. And one time I climbed, and a cowboy stepped on my camera bag and went over me on the wall on the gate because the bull was almost to get him. And I think back how stupid we did that. But that was photography. The photographer belonged right up there. Is what John taught
Wow.
me.
I mean, if you think about it, in the war, there are photographers that are going in the most dangerous parts. We wouldn't know what was happening if we didn't have someone who was putting
Right,
their
and a
life
lot
on the
of those, they
line.
were the number one casualty per capita was in the wars were the photojournalists. Yeah, they
That's a
got that
crazy
close and that
thought.
determined to get the images, and Kappa and all them, they were killed in combat. Yeah,
Or
so
if you think about underwater photographers, I mean, in general, I think people relate photography as a more of a artsy, safe job, but there are elements that is absolute. I mean, to your point, a bull where the cowboys said goodbye and you were still behind, that's a
and those old time photographers photographing the Empire State Building, they were not on wires, ropes, or anything. They were walking the beams with the iron workers.
mm,
And
mm.
and they had huge box cameras, and
I was gonna say
I get
cameras were much
goosebumps
bigger.
saying, "Oh, no," you know? Not for
Wow.
that. I've done high-rise rescues and things, but it's different when you're concentrating on it, but just to look around and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm up here."
I will make note that I, with my camera, no matter what it's strapped to, will not be on a high rise ever. If I am, somebody check on me.
Mhm.
That's intense. I just when you look at it, I mean, still, I know that you are not retired. I don't think you'll ever retire officially, but to be able to capture in history so much that's changed, I can only imagine what it feels like to watch that and to be able to go back and look in time and know that you have captured at least an image, but there's a story behind it. Yeah, I bet you've got hundreds of stories that
It's amazing when I look at it and I go, "Oh my gosh, I remember," and then I said, "Oh, I sound like one of the old guys." That's what used to be there was this, and this is how it
right.
was. But when I was doing all those pictures at the time, I never thought about at being
Sure.
history.
Yeah.
That was all the Hilty and all the other guys that shot that stuff. That was their job, was get the old timey stuff, I thought. But next thing I know, it's history. And I'm telling stories that people like when you talk about the ice house. I said, yeah, I grew up next door to the ice house. I used to watch the big wheel go over and the guys throw me blocks of ice, and say, printer's son, have this,
And they would
throw
manhandle
off a
the
chunk of
ice.
corner or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. Because the blocks were 100-pound blocks that they were throwing around. They were big, huge men. And then I actually ran a rescue call on one of them like 20 years later.
Oh my
He was
goodness.
still he was old, but he was a man still from throwing that ice.
Mm-mm, I wouldn't want to battle that for at all.
Mm-mm.
As you think about the history of the community that you've photographed for generations now, truly, what are some of the biggest changes that you have seen throughout the years?
In the
Yeah,
community. Well, the big downtown changed so drastic, and it felt weird because it was just a hub of business and people, and we all ate lunch or we ate breakfast at City Drug, and government was going on there first thing. Ronnie Clark and the county commissioners, everybody in there eating and talking about what's going to happen that day, and then we'd eat lunch at King's Coffee Shop, and we were a hub. All merchants knew each other and everything. Then they built the mall. And everybody said, if you don't go out there, you're going to go broke. You're not going to make it. Well, most of them packed up and went out there to the big stores, Belk's, Penny's, because with Penny's and Belk's, everything in between,
yeah,
you couldn't park down here hardly.
right.
And that was like the end of the community to me, the end of the camaraderie, the fellowship with everybody knew everybody. All merchants knew each other. We all helped each other, all bought from each
I mean,
other.
y'all had
Took the
that's how the blue crab or the Halloween, events where you were trying to get foot traffic down and
Right, yeah, and John Hodge kept telling me about that idea his to have a blue crab, then when he got my attention, he said, "We're gonna bring a submarine in, a military submarine." I said, I wanna see a submarine
right,
downtown Palaca." Yeah, but he had a great vision when he did that, and then he started designing the T-shirts and all that, and of course, I sat down there for a while with my boat pretending to sell my sailboat, so it was part of
right,
the gathering,
yeah,
so to speak, yeah. So it's been a lot of things come and go, but, the azalea used to be the beauty pageant, and that some of my pictures are down the street of those girls in those
yeah,
funny bathing suits and the fluffy hair on those old, and they were new, convertible cars sitting up there, and people packed along Brady's store and all that down there that are all gone. Yeah, I loved the old downtown.
yeah.
Yeah, it was family.
Yeah, when I think about, I got a little emotional thinking about that. When I think about being there, hearing the stories, and that's what I love about listening to you guys talk about the past. Like it's I can almost feel the energy that was, and I really hope that as we forge forward, now the mall is desolate,
It's empty.
and there are some great, stores that serve our community, but there's something very special about shopping local and downtown and somebody who's invested in your community and brings something where they are neighborly. And I like going into Lemon Street and then walking up and going to Urban Farmhouse and being able to dine at Magnolia and then go see art at, where the gathering artists of Putnam are. There's something special about walking into each one of these shops, but knowing that when I spend my money, that I am not only getting something that I enjoy, but helping feed somebody and their
Right,
family
right.
and investing in my own community by investing in my family. There's something very special about that. And I really do believe that people who aren't from Putnam see it. And I believe that there are those of us who are in Putnam County see it. But I hope that we can spread that kind of positivity and let other people be inspired to continue to support the small businesses and let's line up for an opening of a small business just like we would for a large chain
Support them. I know it.
and to bring back that camaraderie because there's I'm telling you, it really is special when I walk downstairs. So right now I'm upstairs filming, enjoying the brick background of the second story on Second Street, 117 North Second Street. That's home for me. And the radio station, obviously, but when I when we first came down here, when Charlie opened the law firm and the financial firm and really re-inhabited the building, Velshoff's was just a food truck on the corner there, and the lofts, the upstairs housing had been there, but it was empty downstairs. And to watch the transformation that has happened, and now when I walk down, I'll walk into every. How's it going? Good morning. How are you doing? I know everybody. So it's the 100 block family. And I want to bring that back. I would love to see the
That
same
positive energy,
unit.
caring, supporting each other, and
Absolutely.
it's massive, yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanna share, you made me think, because when I have friends come in from out of town or something, we go to the grocery store.
Hmm.
And, of course, I know everybody in the store. Went to
Right.
school with them or photographed them or ran rescue or did something, and people go, "You can go to the store and know people you meet people you know?" And they're like, "What? I don't go anywhere and know anybody." And I can walk through town and know everybody and
Absolutely.
talk
Yeah.
to them. And my wife goes, "She can't go to the store with me anymore." I said, "You ought to be
Yeah.
the greeter at Walmart," but the parking lot would back up. I said, "I know everybody. I gotta
Yeah.
catch up."
Yeah.
And so I agree that this community, we need to put the phones down and entertainment and eat dinner and talk to each other and share time and life because, I'm at 72 and I'm realizing, okay, yeah, all the guys that I fought fire with are dying. I'm going, okay, I don't want to miss out on time with somebody and share. I don't want to. And when you're in that little community and you're bonded and what they do is important to you and what you do is important to them, like my Facebook page, my classmates, it's so important to them. And it's so important that I get to see their name with a like. And I say it's the same as I get to say hi to you today.
I
That's
love
what it
that.
means.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, okay. The I just really am so thankful that we still have the opportunity to sit down and talk about this and to hear your stories. And so one of the things as you continue doing your photography, are you still photographing any weddings, or can people come to you for
I
photography?
have done some recent weddings, but because of my L5, I broke in high school. It's really I can't stand long. I can walk forever, but I can't stand long. And my knees are rebuilt, but I had knee replacements that failed, and I've been down for almost 4 years trying to get back up walking, and now I'm doing pretty good. I do small weddings for friends. I do portraits for people that want something nice. Um, a lot of people don't care, but I do I volunteer at the theater. I've been in 5 plays.
Yes.
Whenever they need an old guy or somebody
Oh
that
my
has
goodness.
uh, dementia or mental issues. I actually the last one I was loaned off to Flagler Playhouse to be in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I was lobotomized. So anyway, just making a joke out of it. But I do all the portraits for the of the actors and the
Hmm.
kids that are in it, and I have a good time with them. And yeah, I still work, and I'm working on my own. I'm going to do a show. I'm gathering up my friends, Donnie Adams, my mentor John Hodge. I'm going to do their portraits, and my niece is Crystal Anderson.
Hmm.
When Jeremy have the big building down here,
Hmm.
Andrea's old building,
Yeah.
and I've made arrangements to have one man shows in there. And so I'm going to do a show
Amazing.
on friends and muses.
I
And
love
I
that.
was gonna do my show with the farmers in there, but now they approached me from the Hastings Cabbage, Bacon, Potato Festival
Yep.
and asking if I would consider putting my show in there next year. So that might be, but yeah, I'm creating shows and I have to take pictures every day. It's almost like a fix. Like if
Yeah.
I'm gonna breathe air, I've got my camera. My house has front windows out like this, and I built a garden out there, and I have birds in and out all day. So some people think I'm sitting in a blind in the jungle, but there's times I'm in the armchair and slide the big windows open and I'm photographing hummingbirds and cardinals and things there. My ospreys aren't there, but so yeah,
See, you
that's
do know the names of the birds, not just
yeah,
red
yeah, a little
birds.
bit. And it's just not Bob and Bill and
Right.
Fred.
Exactly. Well, we'll be sure to put any links that people can see your work or
Okay.
connect with you in the description. I have to know, is there a photograph that is like your prized possession that you hold? Is there one piece that you're like, if I had to keep this, that would be it?
Oh, there's so many, but I just did one last Christmas for my daughter Lindsay. Justin Morris, her husband, took a school bus and made a camper out of it. So he took Lindsay and the two girls 6 weeks out west in that camper. So when she gets home, she says, I want to do a family portrait, but way different than normal. I want to do it with the bus and I want it to be funny. I wish I could share it with you right now. I don't have it, but it's everybody that looks at it, it's one of my highest requested images. But I did it in the flavor of National Lampoon Vacation.
Ah,
And everybody that looks at it can't believe it was created by me or whatever. It's just has so much fun and impact and life in it. They're laughing, they're spraying each other with the hoses. Justin's burning up something on the grill, and he's wearing a tuxedo with a cap, one of those
I love it.
skiing
Yeah.
caps. And if I wanted to put a picture up someplace and said, "This is life and this is fun, enjoy
Mhm.
it," I would say this is what I want to represent because I produce so many images. You
Well,
know,
I would be honored to be able to take that, and I will never do it justice in the print. We both know that. But I would love to include some of these images in our video.
oh, I
So
can do
you
that.
stay tuned. Hank, don't press stop now. Keep watching, and we're gonna throw in some images as soon as this is over, and you can see some of Tom's work. And we look forward to seeing your production at I think it's Sailor on the St. John's, correct?
Taylor, that's my niece. That's
Perfect.
my
Yep.
niece's
So we'll
daughter.
we'll be sure to leave all the information for that. But I just want to say thank you for capturing memories of this community for a lifetime and for a generation and for future generations to enjoy.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing all the work that you do, including the farmer show.
Well, that makes me proud. Thank you.
No, absolutely. All right, stay tuned. Keep watching. Check out some of these videos. We'll see you on the next episode.